You're listening to Ignite Your Success, a podcast that inspires fitness professionals to build a strong business that enables them to serve more people and engineer the lifestyle they desire. It's Brad Shepherd here, and together with Jason Ubanowicz, we're best known for running Trainer HQ, a community of passionate and profit-hungry fitness business owners that make a massive difference in others' lives every day. Each episode will unpack for you exactly what's working and deliver best practice strategies so you can confidently grow your business and make a huge impact. Hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Ignite Your Ultimate Success podcast. I'm Brad Shepherd from Trainer HQ, and today I'm very honoured to be interviewing somebody who I've known in the fitness industry for many years. Not only an esteemed colleague, someone who I've seen kick some massive goals, but also a really great friend of mine as well. So welcome Mr. Tim West to the podcast, my friend.
Mate, thanks for having me.
Mate, it's great to have you along. I'm, as I discussed in the intro, I'm just like, I got so much to unpack today. Tim, you are the co-founder and also managing director of UBX, a huge brand which is absolutely kicking goals. But what I want to do first is I probably want to backtrack a little bit and go back to your days as a personal trainer, kicking off as a humble PT. So, mate, hit me with that part first.
Well, mate, I'd come back from, or come from a background of being a wannabe athlete to start with. And I think a lot of PTs that you'd work with are of that mould.
Yeah.
And so, realising you're not going to be a professional athlete and going into exercise science as a way to stay connected to sports.
Yep.
That then led into being a personal trainer, where I started to sort of earn money to pay for study. Working through that model is where I met you originally.
Yeah.
So I won't tell the listeners how long ago that was, mate, when you were the big dog at Veranda at
Movements at Veranda. That was a great gym, wasn't it?
It was
Brisbane
good,
there. And still pumping too today is a great gym. So, mate, yeah, I reckon we would have been well over 20 years ago, hey?
It's well over 20
years.
Yeah,
probably 25-ish, so yeah, quite a while ago.
That's right.
And you kicked off as a trainer?
Yeah, that's right. So,
Yep.
But I always train people with the same sort of sports mentality. I always, wanted to focus on sports science, not bro science. And that was probably the hallmark of what I did as a trainer.
Yeah, love it, man, love it. And then from there, you didn't just stay in one gym. You started to, to sort of branch out, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Different gyms and...
Yeah. So, between Fitness First and Good Life, and then ultimately investing in jets.
Yeah. So from you, like how long did you spend as an actual PT, I guess effectively in many ways, turning up and training people and doing the whole exchange of time for money and so forth?
Mate, I was doing it from probably 99 through to 2008.
Okay.
So, but that was here, in the UK, in Scotland, in England, in Scotland, and in Canada.
Yeah, wow. So you went did the whole travelling sort of holiday part, did you? Or
yeah,
what?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then sort of bookended that with fitness.
Yeah, great. And so almost 10 years in the game, and then so jump to it, then somehow you found yourself in a position where you're able to purchase, your first gym. Being the first jets, and that happened in around about that time, was it?
Yeah, that's right. 2007, Brendan had launched a sort of concept store, and one of our mutual friends, again from Movements and from study, had purchased the first one in Palm Beach.
Yep.
And so we took the first Brisbane clubs, which were the second, third, and fourth clubs in the country.
Wow! So this is the jets, the early days of jets.
Early days of 24-hour. See, the hardest thing about selling a membership
was
convincing people that we were actually going to let them train 24 hours.
Yeah, wow. Oh, no, I remember those days. I remember being a PT myself, and I remember training clients right through till the gyms would shut at, say, 9 o'clock at night. And I remember saying to the gym owner of FitZone, which is a gym you'd know in Fortitude Valley there, which I PT'd from for many years. I remember saying to the gym owner, they're shutting out the lights. I'm training my last client. They're doing their last set of tricep push downs, whatever. And I'd be going, geez, I wish they had 24-hour gyms because I'd keep booking clients the whole time.
Exactly. And so we'd get keys from the owners and and let ourselves
do
out,
all that stuff.
and to make up for that, yeah.
So the original, Jets was one of the original 24-hour facilities here in Australia, correct?
Well, it was the original.
The first
to open and to start franchising.
And you guys had what number of that?
Well, after the pilot, we had ultimately number 2, the first one in Brisbane.
Wow.
And then I think number 3 and number 5 with Ashgrove and Lutwyche.
That's amazing. And that was built on a reasonably small footprint. Is that correct?
Yeah, the original one was about 170 square metres, so tiny in comparison to what they get to now.
Yeah. And how did you do it? Like, I guess the question is, because we have a lot of personal trainers and fitness professionals who aspire to one time go, hey, I'd love to, maybe own my own gym or take that step. How do you go from being PT into that next? How did you do it anyway?
Well, I think one thing that all PTs start to realise is that there's payment in terms of cash, and then there's payment in terms of contacts and relationships. And I think PTs have a unique relationship with their clients and with the network itself. So, my first gym, Jets, was funded with capital from 2 others, 2 business partners, and my sweat equity.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I was young enough to want to dedicate time and effort.
You were hungry.
And hungry enough, and to find those investing partners. And then the second and third was built off the cash flow of the first. So it was important to me to get off to a really good start with that first club.
Yeah. And with those contacts, so they're people you'd met and they had the capital, and so you were, I guess, savvy enough to go, all right, I'm going to have business partners here. It's not all just me. I can't do it all myself, because obviously you had the energy, you had the talent and so forth, but it was like, let's find someone who I can go in with together.
Yeah, correct. And I was really fortunate to find 2 people with really complementary skills. So one of them was an ex-PDI for Special Forces, who'd then gone into cruise ships, so he was out of the country. And the other was actually one of my first employers in fitness who had as well gone out of the country. And so they weren't physically here. It was a great opportunity I wanted to take advantage of.
For you to step up.
And I was happy to burn the time.
Wow.
Sweat equity.
And how long between opening the first one that enabled you guys to open your second one?
It was rapid. So we did the second one in 8 months, and then we'd opened 3 by 13 months.
Yeah, wow, that's cool. So 3 Jets, and I'm well aware of the clubs. I've been there. They're in Brisbane. At some point in time, you guys turned around and sold those. So how did that all come about? What was the decision there, and how long had you had them for when you came to that decision?
Mate, we'd had them under 3 years, and I had a sort of mental tipping point. So I knew that supply-demand was going to drive the value of the clubs. And so the moment that they stopped selling franchise in Brisbane, we put all 3 on the market.
Gotcha.
And that's how we achieved them.
So quite a strategic move.
Yeah, not emotional, pretty strategic.
Yes. And at the time, I remember back then when Jets was kicking off and it was starting to grow, I remember there was a much smaller and unknown brand then called Anytime Fitness, which was emerging. I remember somebody telling me at the time, they're saying, well, I don't really see Anytime turning into much in this country. There's about 4 locations and they're mostly regional. And those of you who are listening would know they're quite the dominant brand. I've got no idea how many Anytimes. You probably know.
Well, I think it's in the region of 500.
500 odd Anytimes currently. So that's incredible. So strategic move, all right. So loving the story thus far. So sold that. Now I imagine you would have sold that for a profit, and would have put the 3 of you into a strong position. You then moved into the next venture.
Yeah, that's right. So we realised pretty quickly that personal trainers on a whole were not great at collecting funds. They were particularly bad at collecting them for no-shows. And so we built a system that got you to pay 7 days in advance on a recurring billing. And then the booking was managed. And after the booking timestamp, both the trainer and the member confirmed the session was provided, releasing the funds. If it wasn't confirmed by the client, then there was a process to work out whether the trainer provided their half and the funds were released to the trainer then.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it was all scripted out, well managed. I remember catching up with you at the time. You ran me through the whole model. And you guys spent, time, energy and effort building that.
Yeah, that's right.
But you didn't stay with that business.
No, it's one of those lessons in the journey sort of story, if you like. So, building a software product when you're not from tech was obviously expensive and it was a challenge. We got to the point of launching and had burnt all the cash in order to market it.
Yeah.
But on the silver lining, the developers for Easy Client, which is what it was called at the time, the developers pitched a product that they were building themselves, which the three of us decided to seed fund, and it's now a $2 billion company.
Oh, wow.
So the silver lining in essentially a failed business experience was a lot of experience in tech and payments, which has helped us a lot in where we are now, but also an investment that was a bit of a sleeper, which has ended up being a good one.
So, and just back to that, because I do remember we caught up and we had that chat. I remember you telling me about just running some rough numbers on here's what I'm paying developers and here's what I'm paying techies. I remember my eyes almost popped out when you told me some of the amounts that these people were getting paid, and you're sure they're highly skilled individuals and so forth. But I can see how all that there was all this profit that you would have taken away from the sale of your businesses that that you would have been pretty happy with, and you would have seen that amount just decreasing.
That was a very stressful part of it.
We can laugh about it now, but
it's better than crying.
How was it? But how did you deal with that? But that's the part I really find fascinating, is that when you were in that, were there moments where you were thinking, oh my God, this is not looking great, or was it always I know this thing's going to work out? What were some of the experiences that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was obviously times when we were incredibly confident, because what we did know is that we knew our customer and we knew that the problem existed and we knew that the problem was painful. You get out of bed at 4 a.m, you get to the gym by 5 or 4:30, and your client doesn't show up. You text them and you call them, and it's halfway through the session, they're not coming.
Yeah.
But you've got a tension, because to ask them for payment for that, you always feel the tension, the stress that maybe they'll cancel all over.
Yep.
And so, there's that pressure that all trainers feel, where their time becomes devalued. So we knew that there was a pain and a friction that was worth a business solution. And so that was, we were really confident in, and the business was successful in solving that problem. But it's a good lesson in, you got to provision for the marketing of the product, not just the build.
Not just the build, yeah. So there is the terminology, build it and they will come. And in that instance, it's like, we built it, we had the great product and so forth. But the next part is, we need to get this thing to the market. Obviously, that led you into, if I understand correctly, the latest venture. Have I got that part of the timeline correct?
Yeah, that's right. So after we exited in that model, in that business rather, and then I was sitting there just going, well, I've always made money in fitness.
What's next?
And what's next? and I really wanted to get back to, how do I scale my particular format of training, which was skill-based interval training and was function-based strength. And when you think about the period, we still weren't fully in the functional strength model at the mainstream. We had CrossFit, but we didn't have a lot of the functional. And so, when I looked at that and trying to piece that together, how do I scale it? I wasn't going to go back to PT because I'd been there, I'd done that. I'd already gone through the one-on-one process.
Yep, you've been there, done. Sorry for butting in.
Yeah.
What year was this?
So we're talking the sort of formulation of the idea in 2014
to 2014. Okay, so we're 9 years ago.
Yeah, correct. The formulation, the back of napkin formulation of the idea.
Yeah, we
already had 2 or 3 years by that point of watching F45.
Yep.
Whether you read the story, into the story or not, they founded in about 2012.
Yep.
So we watched them in Sydney. We knew Orange Theory was in the US.
Yep.
We knew of the history of curves. We knew of the history of 9-round, the training model, and we just looked to grab the best aspects of those models and bring them together, and ultimately to scale my format of training. And we realised that boxing was underrepresented in the global commercial fitness market.
Yeah.
Unlike boutique, which had already scaled to over 1,000, boxing's largest provider was 140. So there was a gap, even though every athlete I'd ever trained used boxing.
Yeah.
every team I'd ever trained used boxing.
And such, just even for most fitness clients, I'd say that most personal trainers would have a set of gloves and focus pads in their kit bag, and it's a pretty well used piece of equipment. I know in our whole journey running a team of trainers, it was one of the most popular things that clients would do. Yeah.
And it has that aspect of, they're not really conscious that they're exercising. They're doing interval training, but they're not really thinking of it as interval training, which was why we knew there was a model, because it's a tool in the toolkit of every fitness professional, be that an S&C coach for a professional team or a trainer in the park, but it hadn't scaled. And that was what I was looking at as a problem.
So you came into it with a specific, if I understand correctly, specific criteria. Going, okay, I just don't want something that's fun. Obviously, it's going to fit the technical part, but then you were looking for something that was highly scalable.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that the lesson from Jets, being a franchisee in Jets, was you needed a product that was scalable and that wasn't that the quality of the product could be consistent, even if the staff had inconsistent levels of education, and we're talking clinical strength and conditioning.
Yes.
So, I wanted to make sure that the model could scale, understanding that there was a limited number of ex-professional boxers to staff the gyms. So how do you find scale when there's a specific skill required to deliver it?
Yes.
That was sort of the more nuanced elements of the problem that we were trying to solve.
Yeah. And how were you able to do that then?
So basically, to start with, we centralised the programming. So I put together a core group of strength and conditioning coaches, some that had worked in professional sports, like our COO, who was with Crystal Palace in the EPL.
Yeah.
And I had Danny sitting there on the professional boxing side.
And just for everyone's, if they haven't heard of, fill them in.
Yeah,
Danny.
so Danny Green is a 4-time world champion boxer across multiple weight divisions.
Yeah.
He was probably, when we started, the preeminent boxer in Australia at the time.
Yes.
Hasn't fought for a number of years, but his last fight was Roy Jones Jr. He did beat him.
Yes.
So it's a good feather in the cap.
And did you know Danny Green prior to this, or did you reach out to him? How did all this come about?
Yeah, I guess that's the part of the story that might have been missed. So, when I was putting this together, looking for partner investors again, because I knew that was a formula for success.
Yeah.
I was also looking for critical review of the product. I didn't want to enter a market saying I've got an authentic boxing product, being a very poor amateur boxer myself. I didn't want to go in and say that, hey, I'm hanging this on my boxing experience. It wasn't that at all. It was, how do I put something that met the sports science brief of specificity?
Yep.
We matched everything we could to a championship bout and the demands that a boxer would need to compete in that. And then I looked for confirmation. And a mutual friend who was an investor had introduced me to Danny.
Yep.
And so I flew over to WA to help him launch a gym over there. And as a bit of a trade, I ran the idea by him.
Yeah.
And he just basically turned to her and said, Tim, I'd love to be involved. This is how I've trained my entire life.
Yeah.
And that was the statement that we quoted in every article originally, because it was his belief in the product authenticity which actually made him invest. Full ticket, no discount.
Yep.
And then from then on, he's been the head of boxing for UBX.
I love it. That's great. And this all stems back to, again, your connections, right? So, and this came about from being in the industry, from meeting different walks of people, and you were able to get that introduction.
Yeah, correct.
And so from that perspective, so I guess the big message I hear for many fitness professionals is that in amongst your book of clients and the people that you service, in amongst there's people who can open doors.
Yeah.
And if they're not, maybe they know people, and that list could go on and on.
Yeah, and I think it's that's what you get paid with currency as a trainer for your time.
Yeah.
But what you do acquire is that contact list, that experience. If you think about the profile of a personal training client, certainly when Brad and I started, when it was far more exclusive.
Yep.
It was a far more sort of, a product that only the top socioeconomic or aspiring groups could afford.
That's right.
When Brad still charges rates that only the top can afford now, but it really took the cream off the top, if you like. So the people you were spending your time with, you were giving them the health advice and support.
Yep.
And they were more than willing to give you the mentorship. I know Brad's had some cracking, mentors as well, and as I have, and that was the thing that is the value you have to understand when you're a personal trainer and take advantage of.
Such sound advice, and agree 100%. And although I hung up the Leica a couple of years ago, I haven't had the privilege of doing all that, but it's great memories. And speaking about it takes me a lot down memory lane. Now, you weren't called UBX right from the beginning; you were under a different name. So tell us a bit about the evolution of the start. So you kicked off. First of all, let's talk about when the first gym actually physically opened, the name, and then what led us into the rebrand to UBX.
So the original pilot store opened in Toowong in 2015.
2015, I remember it.
And that was operated for just under 12 months. And it was operated so that I fully understood the systems required to operate it if I wasn't the operator. And so I spent that entire time, when I came up with a problem, solving it, systemizing it.
Running classes yourself, all that.
I was opening, closing.
Back on the tools.
On the tools big time.
Yep.
And I realised that I was someone who operated on an instinctual level. And so one of the first, hires that I made was Jonah, who came over from England, ex-EPL strength and conditioning coach, as I mentioned. Yeah. And one thing we became aware of is that he was very organised. Yes. And I was very disorganised. And I did things out of instinct.
Creative?
Yeah, creative. I did things out of instinct, where Jonah liked to have a system to replicate
systems
that.
and process
And so we worked well together, because as I would do something, he would interrogate me, and then we would create the system.
Yes.
And that's where the first sort of 9 months was spent. Now, the first 17 franchises were sold to members or friends of members, family or friends of that first club.
Love it.
Right, and so...
So once again, there would have been people in your circle that you spoke about, and they may have said, "Hey, I want in on this because I know what I've seen." And
and advocacy was the driver for growth. I wasn't doing any marketing. I was only growing from referrals in the club. I wasn't doing any marketing because I didn't know what we had. I didn't know what the product was, so I couldn't describe it. So it was all just referral based and grew very quickly. I opened a second pilot in Milton, and then we franchised in 2016 towards the end, middle to end. And from then on, it was really rapid growth.
And if I just reflect back to that time of the opening of the first club, was there ever a time in that period, like, did you know that you were going to open a bucket load of these, or was there ever a time when you thought, hey, this could be it, hey, and if I've only got one, that'll be fine, or were you 100% going for it no matter what? Like, what was it?
I was all in. I think the most common thing anyone heard me say was, if I was going to fail, I was going to fail fast, because it was the long drawn out process of developing the tech had taught me that you kind of need to force these things to fail or thrive. There's no in between in a startup. It's either you're moving so fast you're breaking shit, or you're just not going hard enough.
Yes.
So that was sort of a commitment. I told the shareholders I'm going to burn everything in order to get this to work. 2 clubs in the first 6 months, Toowong and Milton, and franchising it within 12 months was just that rapid. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But I thought 10 clubs, realistically. I thought the goal should be 10 clubs at the start. And then my friend Brendan Levinson, the owner of Jets, had said, no franchise makes money till 40 clubs. So 40 clubs was the next target.
I remember someone told me in franchising the number was always 4 or 40. So if you want to stay small, 3 or 4, happy days, but if you want to go for it, you want to make some serious money, 40 plus, because then you've got to have your own internals in terms of your own internal accounting, all the rest of it, and the list goes on. How many does UBX stand at today?
So UBX has 88 open, 17 in pre-sales and under, sourcing sites pre-sales. It then has another...
Sorry for butting in.
You're right.
That's in Australia only?
Australia, Singapore, New Zealand.
Yep.
Because we opened international clubs in 2019.
Yes.
And so there's about 110, if you like, that are either open or in pre-sales.
Love it.
And then there's a further 415 or so under master franchise contracts globally.
Wow, that's incredible, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, how does it feel sitting here now, 8 years down the track from kicking that off? Like, what's the feeling you got?
Look, I think that it always feels as a founder, particularly of a startup and a rapid growing one, you're always putting more money in than you're taking out. You know? So I actually don't feel comfortable with. I never feel like it's there. It's not done.
Yep.
And so I always have that edge of anxiety, which drives me all the time because, we invest heavily. I want to achieve something really big. My first goal is to become the largest boxing community in the world ever.
Yeah.
And so we expect to hit that next year. And so I'm always being driven, feels like I've got the guns at my back. And I never quite feel comfortable, so the throttle's never. I never let go of that. But
you've also got youth on your side, brother. So.
Well, a little bit more than you, but not that much, mate.
Mate, you're looking pretty good, mate. I just, those of you who are listening in, you can't see him, but he's a very dapper looking individual. This guy,
sure. In a t-shirt.
Yeah. Mate, that's fantastic. Now, tell us a bit about the international part because, and this is the part where I don't really fully understand how that will work, but you've sold, if I understand correctly, the rights for someone to build that business internationally?
Yeah, and so franchises grow in one of three ways. They grow in direct entry, which is what we do in New Zealand, Singapore and Australia, and that is where you own the market.
Yep.
Then they grow through master franchise agreements, which is when another party who has particular local strengths takes the license.
Yep.
And they grow that region with your support and infrastructure.
Yes.
And then there's an area developer, which is just like a sales and management team on the ground that's separate entity. Yeah. So we choose to go in directly or under master franchise agreements. Yep. Now we actually started to expand directly into the UK pre-COVID. So we had a lease in Twickenham train station. And that was meant to be opened early 2020 before the world ended. And we fortunately didn't get into the state of having to open that. But we realised without any conscious knowledge of how long COVID was going to go for, we needed to pivot. It's a very trendy word. I hesitate to say it. But we had to go from direct entry into master franchise. We were fortunate to find fantastic partners over there in Empowered Brands who already had 100 health clubs in the UK under the Energy brand. Yeah, so that was our first really big change of strategy. Yes. And it was the first really big deal of 250 clubs in England. Yes. And 10 in Ireland.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. It's incredible. And back to the COVID thing, what a time to be alive, hey, for anybody, but like for you in a growth business where you're putting it all on the line, you're opening clubs, all that sort of stuff. I imagine that you guys, you personally, head office, all the people that had clubs, it would have been a very challenging time, I imagine.
Yeah, and I don't think this is a new story for anyone. I mean, the food and beverage and fitness were most affected. Yeah, fitness probably one of the worst. And so for us, we went into 2020 and we were opening a club every week in 2019. And then all of a sudden to have a full stop put on your business.
Wow.
And we had opened a lot of our pipeline pre-2020. So, from that point of view, we were open and trading, so fully exposed. Yeah. So the situation was pretty traumatic for the network themselves, the clubs themselves and us, obviously. So, we just had to find a way to continue to support the members and we turned to technology. So it went full circle. 2 days after the lockdown, we released our Train on Demand app, which was how we supported the members along with Zoom. So pretty traumatic.
Yeah, man. But on the back end of that, if I understand correctly, that's where you've experienced the most now growth and your master franchise agreements and so forth.
Yeah. So from an overall story, I think that it forced us to look at the strategy and assess its speed of growth when you have to build that team in every region. Yep. It's much slower.
Yes.
You own it, but it's much slower. So, you have to weigh up whether your cost benefit, whether you can grow quicker by partnering and taking less overall, but of a bigger pie.
Yeah. Love it. Well, I guess, the beauty is that you do have, this model, if I understand correctly, you've got the best of both worlds. You've got people that directly come. Now, I also see it, UBX as a model, like, again, when I speak about a lot of our typical clients here who might be looking to make that next step. Okay, I've been a great personal trainer. Maybe I've started to grow a team. Maybe I'm starting to make some more money. I've got a whole bunch of things happening, but I do want my own facility. Yeah. I see, correct me if I'm wrong, the barrier to entry to be, reasonably accessible for somebody. Yeah, if they wanted to have their own UBX.
Yeah, I would say that it's the lowest of the boutique providers in terms of CapEx, and that comes from the strength that boxing gear is not particularly expensive.
Yeah.
And it's not plugged into the wall.
And just so we're on the same page, CapEx for everybody, it's just like, hey, you're not going to have to shell out huge amounts of money.
It's between sort of 220 and 250 all in, which is up to 30 to 50% of some of the competitors. So much lower CapEx, which a lot of people have opted to open multiple clubs because of that, and do it in a sort of a more gradual way.
I mean, that's again my observation is that for the right individual, like I see it as definitely a stepping stone for them, or an opportunity to grow not one but many. So now back to the branding part, because you were previously under another brand. We went through a brand change here at Trainer HQ for the better part of 12 odd years. We were called Create PT Wealth, and that was, I guess, how we saw it. Okay, when we first started, what do we want to do? Well, we want to help PTs generate more wealth, and wealth comes in many currencies, not only monetary but lifestyle and so forth. And then when we reassessed that, what we found is that from our perspective, we're a community of people that come together. And that was probably the biggest feedback that we got. We felt like we wanted to be known as the main platform for trainers to tune into. Hence, it started with a logo change and ended up with a full name and a brand change. And the funny thing on the back end of that is, here in Australia, number one, what we would probably say is that not many people that want to walk around with a shirt that says, hey, gain wealth on it, because I might look like a bit of a wanker or something like that, and consequently what we found is people go, fuck, that new logo, that brand, that looks awesome, they really gravitated towards it. And so that was further proof for us, okay, you guys have done the right thing with this rebrand. You guys also did the same thing. What was the story behind that?
Yeah, I guess the story comes in two parts, and I'll keep it brief. But when we first opened, we did the same thing. We had 12 rounds, ultimately. So the logical name was 12 Round.
Yeah.
And in my own insular world, I knew that a championship fight was 12 rounds.
Yes.
Whereas a professional fight can be 6 to 8. You can go up to 10. Yeah. But a professional fight, a title belt fight is 12 rounds.
Yes.
Not common knowledge.
No, I didn't know that either.
So where I thought there was an obvious connection to boxing that was innate in the name, it turns out not for the general public and not even for the fitness profession. Yeah. And so what was clear was when we did the testing, it was clear that people understood that 12 rounds was a circuit workout.
Yeah.
But they didn't understand that it was boxing.
Yeah,
and so it took extensive market research to find that out. We interviewed people that had come in as trials and members, people that had never inquired as a member, and asked them to innately tell us what they understood of the brand. It was very clear there was a big gap. Given that we were the most differentiated product and we were boxing, but no one instinctively saw boxing, there was a problem. The other issue was that there's a prominent brand in the US that we all know about called 9 Round, and it was one of my inspirations. Now, as soon as we started to dominate the market here with 9 Round in it, we dominated them to about 5 to 1 in terms of sales and openings. Yeah. When we started to register the name internationally, they jumped on it.
Gotcha.
And so we needed both, because we needed to solve a problem with the brand, but we also needed to function practically. We needed to expand, and we couldn't register the 12 Round name internationally. And so we came up with a different name that was much clearer in UBX, and with boxing and strength written under it, just if there's any doubt that it's a boxing and functional strength product.
Yes.
So we wanted to make it explicit, so that there was just no doubt.
Love it, and I love it. The A couple of reasons I love it. In my opinion, it's very clear, simple, effective. What's been the response across the board?
Yeah, it's been very, very strong. In terms of the international story, none of the international opportunities would have come about if we were operating the two brands, because you can understand there's a disconnect, right? You got 60 clubs in Australia under 12 round, and you've got one club in New Zealand and one club in Singapore as UBX, and you're trying to sell a master franchise in England for UBX. They're saying, can't we have 12 round, given it's more prominent?
Yeah.
So the rebrand made sense from that point of view as well. So, everything was lining up that it better explained the product. So we thought that had better cut through. Yeah. It's a slicker, sharper brand. So we thought it would be better and more likely to be worn on apparel. And also it tidied up the international story to facilitate the growth. So those things needed to line up.
Love it. Now, you speak internationally about opportunities, and one big one you were telling me about just before we tuned into this was a connection to the movie Creed.
Yeah.
Got me pretty juiced just hearing about it. So tell us a story about that. How did that all come about?
Yeah, well, again, so in November I got approached by Warner Brothers and Universal. And the approach there was, look, we're looking for a brand partner for the movie Creed. Now, obviously, I thought it was a joke to start with, but it was legit.
Yeah,
and so they were
looking. Not a bad group to be approached by.
Yeah, yeah. World's biggest boxing franchise, and we were aspiring to be the world's largest boxing community. So that kind of made sense. So they'd sort of looked at the international market.
Yeah,
and they'd worked out we were the second largest in the world.
Yeah,
and they thought that the look and feel and the training modality and style matched what the team were looking to partner with.
Yeah,
so we put in a proposal to them, and we were successful. I mean, that negotiation was from November through to early January with a kickoff date at the start of Feb. So it was obviously a pretty rushed process. But to partner with Warner Brothers, be the official brand partner for Creed, really does start to elevate the brand and just show that with the consolidated network now under the one brand, it really is being recognised globally for what it is, which is the second largest boxing provider.
Fantastic. I love it. I love the story. And again, more importantly, it comes back to, contacts, connections, but also being congruent with the brand, being congruent with the model that you put together from day one as that's the ingredients for success in a business like this. So, and that's why you've got these type of people knocking on your door. So
and to further substantiate that, Michael B. Jordan, the main actor in Creed.
Yeah.
Their team pretty fixated on training. If you look at the two rigs,
he goes all right, doesn't he?
They go all right, even to say so myself. And so with the Workout Like Creed program, we had an opportunity to do an outdoor activation in Club Workout where we got access to their licensed content to pump it in. So it was an immersive experience.
Wow.
Now, designing that program with the team from Warner Brothers, there was almost no changes from the program that we put forward, which all it did was reflect the training montage that was made available.
That's cool.
But because the training was so similar to the kind of training that boxers use, it felt authentic to them as well. Yeah. And so they jumped on it. We designed an outside workout, an at-home workout, and a workout for the in-gym. So, pretty cool experience to work with that caliber of team as well.
Super cool. Love it. And I love it just how on so many levels, how it's, just ties in and assists you in your mission, your journey, to be able to impact more people. All right, let's just circle back a little bit now and talk about, trainers, people, you obviously see a lot of them. What's your observation 2023 of the fitness industry, and if people are aspiring to want to open their own facility or follow your type of path, what might be one or two or a couple of things that you might suggest that people could do in this process?
Yeah, I think that with all trainers, my advice would be, and having been one for so long, is to look at those constant opportunities for growth. And I was talking to Brad Harrington, sounds like a name drop, but he's the strength and conditioning coach for the Wallabies.
Yes.
Now he's come on board as our head of strength to complement Danny, and he now oversees all of the training program. And one of the bits of advice that he gave at a recent summit to the trainers there was always be working on your toolkit. So you have a toolkit and everyone has different tools in it.
Yep.
But if they're not constantly working on their craft, their interpersonal skills, their sales skills, their training skills, their theoretical skills, their education, being thirsty, hungry, and so that you're always in a position to make the most of the opportunities that inevitably always come past. We're either prepared for them or not. And so, we're always sort of talking to trainers, and in my life experience of training large groups of trainers like I did at Good Life and at Jets, is that always be working on your craft, rounding out your skill set, developing your skill set, because you just never know when that next opportunity. Now, that opportunity goes in many ways. It could be partnering with an investor to open a boutique. Yeah. It could be opening a 24-hour gym. It could be, it could be just scaling up your PT business to have people working for you, like, Brad's original business. So, it could be any of those avenues. But the one thing that's for sure is if you're not continually developing, then you're not going to be prepared for the opportunity, and you're going to miss it anyway.
Love it. Such a powerful piece of advice, and for us at Trainer HQ, something we heavily promote is that we almost view it like a triangle. You've got your personal growth, your personal development, which is the part that you need to focus on. You've got the technical skills, your craft, and then of course you've got the running of the business, and you want to have that beautiful harmony between the three of those things, and that's what's going to create the success. And the second part to that is that what we've observed is that when you are putting in the work, suddenly those opportunities pop up, right?
The harder I work, the luckier I get, I think is the quote there, And
it just happens. We just see it across the board. I've seen it in my own businesses for many years, and you might be putting in the effort in one particular area, and then the opportunity comes totally left field. We call it in here the expected and the unexpected. So every month we have the expected, and then we've got the unexpected, and quite often it can hit you from left field, but it can be a very good hit you from left field. Like Warner Brothers, you probably weren't sitting there.
Yeah, it wasn't.
That was not expected, right?
No, that's exactly right. Totally left field. So much so I thought it was a joke to start with. But it is just that. Yeah. Always be prepared.
Yeah, love it, man. I'm just so proud of your effort too, and of all the years that I've known you and watching your growth and your evolution. And every time I speak to you, we get to run into each other over the years, personally, also professionally, many years, and just to watch the journey and watch the growth, I always get pumped up. So I believe I get as much out of this as people listening to this do. So, mate, I want to say a huge thank you for giving up your very valuable time to come in here.
Mate, thank you, and thanks for your support always, mentorship and support as well, mate. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed listening to the amazing success story of Mr. Tim West, who is the co-founder and managing director of UBX. And thanks for tuning in to our Ignite Your Ultimate Success podcast. Good, brother.